Hey everyone, this is going to be like the super quick version because my last version was half an hour long and the last 7 versions before that were even longer. So I'm going to try to go through it as quickly as I can. Persecution of gays, equal rights stuff, terrible things. They do happen in non-Islamic countries. I think they happen more in Islamic countries when you take the average. I think a big reason for that is socio-economic and developmental, but it's a given fact that, well, I think it's a given fact that it does occur more there. And I am very unhappy about that. And I think it's far more important, if you ask me what should we do to protect the rights, or especially the life, of a woman or a homosexual in a country where that is somehow frowned upon and they want to persecute them in some way, I think I'm willing to go a long way, because that's super unjust. And then you ask, do I support, if I go to a nightclub, if I have a gay friend and I support his right to get married or whatever, do I support that because I want to piss off Muslims? No, that's not why I support it. I support it because I think those are basic rights. Some Muslims will use that as an excuse, as you said. They will find that as a justification of violence. But I think what you're proposing here is that there's like a single level of violence or upset, and nothing will change it. So gay people and women getting rights in the West, this level, then if we burn the Koran, it's still that level, and whatever we do, it won't go up or down. What I think is, it does go up or down, and it's perfectly okay to make it go up if you have a good reason for it, which I think this is not a good reason for it, which is why I don't support ramping up the level. To me, it's kind of like, sure, if you're like, engaged in a nuclear standoff with some country, in theory, maybe it's alright to ramp up the alertness level and get closer to nuclear war if you think thereby you're kind of preventing nuclear war. But if you don't think so and you're just doing it because you feel, like you wanna show them that you're not gonna back down, then I think you're putting lives at danger unnecessarily. About the flag burning, well, I think, so you said you feel angry at the flag being burned. You feel very upset, but you support people's right to do it. I agree. I support people's right to burn the Quran. I support people's right to draw Muhammad. I support people's rights to do whatever they want. But do I think it's constructive? I think it's about as constructive as me, as a left-winger who opposed the Iraq War, going around burning American flags. I wouldn't do it. I think it's not productive. As for burning Nazi flags, if I were trying to convince the Nazis, I wouldn't do it either. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's anyone that needs convincing, so I wouldn't burn the flag, because if anything, I'll make the Nazis angrier, and I'm not going to... Everyone on the other side's already convinced, so I don't have to burn swastika flags. So my question there is, are you actually changing the opinions of the people that are, like, if you're burning this thing, are you helping change the opinions on the other side? I don't think so. So then what's left? So if you're being counterproductive in terms of the opposition, then to me, as a utilitarian, I want the whole thing to come out as a net positive. So, as a utilitarian, I want there to be a net benefit. What's the net benefit? The thing I still don't get is how it's actually fighting for free speech. I just don't get it. The censorship was self-censorship in the West. Why are you not protesting the newspaper or the channel that produces South Park? They don't really care if so you burn the Koran, someone gets killed in Afghanistan, guess what that's going to do to their decision making the next time a cartoon depicting the Prophet or burning the Quran comes up? It's going to make it more likely that they're going to self-censor again. And if you have some argument that will convince me that doing this will make them not censor at all, or censor so little that it's worth the possible risk to human life, then I can see where you're coming from with that. But at the moment, I don't see how that's going to work. I mean, it's just, I honestly don't understand how that's going to happen. So I don't think it's supporting dialogue or free speech outside. I don't see how it's supporting free speech here in the West. As I said in my last video, I think there are much bigger concerns. So like the blasphemy laws in Ireland, which are actually existing laws where people can get fined, and I'm guessing if they don't pay the fine, go to prison for blasphemy, but blasphemy against the Catholic Church. And the ever-growing influence of China. And so if China, that link has in fact already gotten popular culture altered. Much like from the South Park cartoon withdrew the offensive episode, there have been one computer game and one movie, the remake of Red Dawn, that I know of, that have been basically had their script edited from the villain being China to the villain being North Korea, because they were worried about upsetting China. And you can say, probably wasn't even the Chinese government asking for it, it was just them bowing to what they perceived was the pressures of the market. Exactly, that was the same kind of thing South Park was doing. And that's only going to increase. As a matter of fact, soon there will be at the point where if the Chinese government honestly says to the US president, we do not like this portrayal, then he will try to get it changed. And, if you want to make the argument, well, it's happened in several different ways. There's been pressure put on visits from the Dalai Lama and so on and so forth. It has happened in pop culture, whether the Chinese government directly put pressure on or not. So we can sense the risk of that happening. And the potential of the Chinese government to pull this off is magnitudes greater than some disorganized Muslim extremist kind of sentiment. So where's the outrage? I don't see it. And I guess in the atheist community, I think a reason why I don't see it is because China's not a religion. It's a nationality, and so when it's a religion, plus, I don't know, I think there's just a general trend towards not liking Muslims. I'm not saying that's where you're coming from, but I mean, that's just Pat Condell and people like that I'm talking about. And obviously, the immigration issues in Europe and things like that. the last point I wanted to come to was, I guess, one of your earlier points, which was about the fact that they behave way worse than we do, which I agree with. I mean, I think there's no one, as a matter of fact, I know, there's no portrait of Muhammad there's no amount of Qurans you can burn that will make you as bad as a person that in fact kills another person. So the people, for example, that killed those UN workers were the worst people. But I'm very willing. I take that as granted, yes. But the two arguments for me still are the people in the middle, the people that weren't those extremists. So you do need to still consider them. But the most important point is, what's the utilitarian calculation here? How are we helping? What's the benefit? How are we fixing things rather than breaking them more? And I know you said something to the effect of if we don't burn Qurans, they'll just find something else to pick on. But, I mean, to me that's kind of an unfalsifiable argument, because what can so if we all converted to Islam, they would still find something to pick on and cut all of our heads off. You could always say so, but I do think there are differences and different approaches, and whilst we might not convince the people that are holding guns right now and exploding things, we can convince a lot of people in the middle, one way or the other, and that is going to shift culture in the Islamic world. It's not going to happen overnight. And this entire problem is not going to be resolved overnight. Much like left-wing violence in the US, in Germany, in other countries, terrorist violence was not resolved overnight. There was no way that you were going to find a way of putting an end to it, because the people that were committing that violence were so committed and completely impervious to any kind of rational thought. What you had to do is you had to cut off their supply. You had to basically fight their ideology, fight the way that they believed in things, and fight the people that were backing them in such a way that they would just not, people would not grow up believing that, they would not go out and join those kind of groups, and the last couple of people that were in those groups would stop getting weapons. To me, that's how we beat Islamic terrorism. And to me, that's what all of these ideas are not doing at all. They're going exactly the other way. They're more suggestive of a culture war, which is us against them, which is going to convince people to actually go and do these kind of things. But I'm very, as I said, I believe you've given this all good consideration, and I very much appreciate your video response. And the one thing I would like to have a bit more of a grasp on is how you think that Draw Muhammad Day or burning Qurans is going to be a positive. I don't know if you're a utilitarian like myself, so I don't know if you're like the greatest common good kind of guy, or you're more of a justice person, or what exactly your philosophical outlook is, but I'd be interested in how these actions will meet the outcomes that you think are morally the optimal outcomes, because that's really the big part of the argument. It's not so much about it, as an act. I think if I could see where it's going, I could definitely agree that it's not just justified, but a great thing to do. But I still can't quite see it. Anyways, Church of STFU, hopefully below 20 minutes. I'll see you all later.